What's good, brothers? We live.
Oh, okay. That was quick. That was quick.
Yeah, we trying to figure out what y'all talking about today. What you boys trying to talk about today?
Money,
Man,
power,
Cars.
clothes and
I just want to be successful.
too much. Oh, y'all listening to too much Drake, huh?
the women
Hey,
and weather.
hey, that Drake CD is. Brothers from different mothers that are my brothers of perspective, man. You know what's good, man.
Can't call it. Happy to live another day.
Can't call it.
Check in, quick check in. Everybody, all right, man? Everything good? Everybody, this is Suicide Awareness Month, man. So I got to check in, make sure all my brothers is good. Everybody, all right?
And you do know that.
Doing well over here.
Can't call it, man. Like I said, Suicide Awareness Month. Like he said, Suicide Awareness Month, man. I'm just happy to have all my wits about me. Wake up and see another day. Get out there, go grind. Happy to be around my family. Was in a wedding last week, so it's always to see some black love going on. You know what I'm saying? We had a good time. A lot of folks from Chicago, Kansas City, Missouri, and that's from Cali, man. So it was a good old time. But other than that, man, I'm feeling good.
Yeah, let me real quick say, because I got my son in Louisiana, so shout out to everybody who is doing well in Louisiana. Prayers for the families that have to still go through stuff as they rebuild, but glad that a lot of people made it through.
Second that.
Yeah. Shout out to all the people. Man, I don't really just normal stressors, man. We get into that holiday season, got all the types of stuff you got to go on and manage, but it's still a normal day, job opportunities coming available, different tasks, different assignments at work, off work. It's just normal stuff going on in my world. Nothing that we ain't used to, nothing that we don't normally do.
That's what's up, man. Glad everybody in balance, man. I'm good. Everything's great over here, so no complaints, man. Check on your loved ones. Check on the people you care about. You never know what's going on. For those who are along the coast, whether it's the East Coast or the Gulf Coast, who have experienced the things in regard to the storms and the hurricanes, man. Check on them, make sure they're all right. Offer them a place to stay. And if they need to stay 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, let them stay. They're going through a tragedy. We want to make sure that everybody's mental is okay, because there's a lot of people who just lost everything they had. So check on your people, make sure they're okay. Again, as Suicide Awareness Month, we need to be more mindful of the things that people go through in life and how sometimes it's not about the fact that life hurts. And sometimes because life hurts, they're just trying to escape life. So it's not always for the fact that somebody's done something to them. Sometimes it's just that life hurts. They're not always doing it for attention. Sometimes it's life hurts. So be mindful of that and take care of the people you love and look out for them.
Ditto that.
So man, today we are going to talk about an important topic, double standards and how we have a society that is hypocrites, full of hypocrites, man. And they have a lot of double standards going on in this world, particularly when it comes to relationships and gender and things like that. How do you guys feel about where we are? And do you feel like we have double standards when it comes to whether we're talking about heterosexual and homosexual relationships? Are there double standards?
Absolutely. I'll jump in first. It's double standards in both in the heterosexual world, all types of relationships. Anything that we can look at in society, you can probably point out within that topic a double standard. But obviously, I can only speak from the heterosexual relationship stuff. I think that there's double standards that exist on both sides for what women have a double standard for and what men have a double standard for.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like we said, I mean, we've never been in a homosexual relationship, like we just got a commenter here that said they haven't been either, but I think it's more so like heterosexual males. We don't mind two women being together, or we want to join in on that two women being together. So, you know what I'm saying? It's one of the things. Is that a double standard? Right? It is. You know what I'm saying? So as a straight man, you're like, I ain't trying to be with no dude, but that's the double standard, big dog.
I mean, when I'm thinking about double standards, I think about our gender roles. I think that plays into a big piece of both sides of it. People have a certain perspective of what a gender role is. So when you look at a homosexual relationship, it's like people are trying to guess what's the relationship like? What's the dynamics in that relationship? How do they function? So then the double standard is kind of almost just placed on there because people don't know how the relationship is functioning. Whereas in a heterosexual relationship, the double standard is, well, this is what men are supposed to do and this is what women are supposed to do. And then if people don't meet those criteria, it becomes like, well, you know, that's what you should be held to do. And then you start those arguments. Well, why I gotta be placed in this box? I think that's what comes out a lot from double standards too. I'll just start there and then let it expand.
I was going to say even too, like, I mean, we're talking about it from relationship standpoints, right? And we can only speak to it from relationship standpoints, but we can speak to something else from the outside looking in. If we look at how it's displayed in the public and in the media, I don't know if that's exactly kind of where you was going with it too, Parrish. Is like, what's our outlook on the things on how they're presented to us, right? There was a interesting topic that got posted by a social media friend a couple of days ago on a comparison between Lil Nas X and Drake's Girls Like Girls song. And it's like, you know, why does Lil Nas X catch all this flack, but yet Drake is doing the same thing? And it's like, then we turn around and say, oh, what about the children? And so, I mean, I had an opinion on it that was, you know, slightly, not, I wouldn't say more in favor of Drake, but just more in depth on what I see from Lil Nas X that I had an opinion on. But I mean, I could truly understand her whole point in talking about why she felt it was a double standard between the two, because I could see how that could be a great debating topic in itself.
Yeah, you know, I think that there's always going to be double standards just because, you know, people, they typically go with the flow of the crowd. You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of people don't have a principle in their decision making on which a value system in which they stand on. And so, you know, you're either accepting of relationships that are not the typical relationship that you would engage in, or you're not. And I think we see that a lot when we see, you know, two women together versus two men. You know, I do think though that sometimes we talked about cancel culture. The reason we can't always have these conversations about what's double standard and not is because as soon as you say something the wrong way, someone is trying to get rid of you instead of taking the opportunities to educate. You know, we have conversations about, you know, us seeing more intimate relationships between gay people on or homosexual relationships on TV, and how sometimes you're introduced to that, or your children are introduced to it before you're even ready for it, and how, you know, the argument is, well, you know, people don't complain when it's a heterosexual relationship. I think all conversations when it comes to our children, we need to be mindful of what they're watching, and we need to be able to have those conversations. But I do think that, you know, there should be more disclaimers on TV when there are mature displays of affection in general. You know what I'm saying? Nowadays we see, you know, men's and women's asses just walking around on TV, you know, and it could be a PG-13 show. So I do think that the conversation about double standards goes beyond just the relationship. Sometimes it's about what we see or what we hear in our music and things of that nature, right? You know, everybody was upset when they found out that Frank Ocean was singing to a boy on Forrest Gump, but the song was still really, really good. You know what I'm saying?
But he said, "You run my mind, boy." So you know it's a boy.
Yeah, he did. And you know what? That still don't stop me from listening to "She Working at the Pyramid Tonight," because he said she is working at the pyramid tonight. No, I'm not going to stop playing that.
I don't know. Do y'all feel like this is like an over? I don't know how to say it. Like, fortunate. We talked about fortunate on our kids, but I remember my parents like covering my eyes, like, you know what I'm saying, like when it was sex scene, and they wouldn't even. You didn't see anything, but it was just like a sex scene was coming, or two people was kissing. And my parents was covering my eyes. You feel like kids are bombarded by more sexual content now than before, and is that an issue? I mean,
It's because of the outlets now. I mean, if your child has a phone or a tablet,
So
it's over. They're gonna see what they're gonna see, and no matter how you try to safeguard and put on different kind of buffers on whatever sites you have at your house, they still gonna run into it somewhere in some way. So a lot of the times, I'm thinking the double standards is it that, and I think I'm thinking it from, and I'm not speaking for homosexual relationships, but is there a lack of, we just don't get it, we just don't understand, so then those double standards are then created because, like we all said, we can't speak on a homosexual relationship, and since we can't, then it's kind of like, well, we're gonna go with the ideas that we have of what relationships are, and then that's where you become like, oh, these are the standards that I'm putting on a relationship that I don't really understand. And I think that's why a lot of the things happen is because we just have a lack of understanding. So then we start to create what those standards that we believe should be there. So
I feel like too, when it comes to like TV shows and stuff like that now, right? I will say that part of it is we got to get with it a little bit more too. I don't feel that there's a TV show that they present to us that's a scripted TV show that doesn't have some inclusivity to the LGBTQ community, LGBTQ plus. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm probably missing a letter, but I'm sorry. LGBTQ, more letters now too?
Plus.
Okay, plus. There we go. So I feel like all of the shows do show some inclusivity to it, right? When we was watching Sons of Anarchy, I feel like FX popped it all off, but I used to just think FX was different. Like they just go above and beyond because they're FX. But now if I look at it, any one of the powers that we're going to talk about right now is going to explore some of those things, and all of us in the community watch Power. I don't really feel like that, within our shows as Black America, that we don't have, like, that's not, that angle is always approached. So maybe we need to get a little bit more to the point that, okay, when we're watching these TV shows or we're watching it and our kids are around, that this is probably going to be something that pops up. So if we haven't had any control or any type of dialogue around that conversation, it's almost shame on us, because which show isn't putting that in their scripted TV now?
Tab, that's a good point. Talking about inclusivity and how it is important to, to a certain degree, for sure. I think that, as parents, we have to be able to have those conversations with our kids about what they're watching, and not even talking about whether it's, it's intimate relationships on TV, whether it's heterosexual or homosexual relationships. I do think, though, that kids are exposed at a younger age to more graphic content. And the problem with that is that their brains are not always ready to process that correctly. And so, whether we're having conversations with our kids or not, sometimes they're being exposed to things too much. And society may say, well, hell, your kids have cell phones anyway, and they can just Google whatever. Hell, Pornhub is an app, and these little kids running around with the app on their phone. I think that that's more of parents not monitoring what their kids are, exposed to, instead of society saying, hey, here, just have it. You know what I mean? Because how would they know what that app is to look for? But I think when it comes to certain TV shows that are family shows, we have to be mindful, again, and tell our kids to cover their eyes or not watch these shows. We try to raise our kids too fast, and sometimes there's a reason that TV show is rated PG-13, rated R, rated 7, or 17, and things of that nature. And we have to be mindful of that. I had to tell myself one day, like, there's a reason there's a Amazon Prime Kids. Let my son watch anything that's on Amazon Prime Kids. All that other stuff, he probably don't need to be watching, because it does have graphic content.
Yeah. I mean, but you hit it right on the head. I mean, a lot of what's going on, it still comes down to how we control what's going on in our households, right? So, I mean, there's always going to be something outside your household that you're like, man, I'm indifferent, on the same page, or I have my opinions. But for our children, of course, we're going to be like, well, let me at least guide you enough so that when you're old enough to make the decision, you can make an educated decision. So what you are hitting on is exactly what I think a lot of people, tend to sometimes forget, is like, yeah, it's being put out in music, it's being put out on TV, but at the end of the day, we still control what we purchase, right? So if you don't want to engage in it, it's either turn the channel or don't purchase the item, because there is a way to cut it off if you need to.
Well, I'm saying, so are we saying there's double standard because we're ignorant to other cultures, or what are we saying the double standard is?
So I was saying in the beginning, the double standard was that I don't say ignorant, I said we have lack of knowledge, because we have an idea. We're just probably in some areas is not like, man, I need to know more information before I make that educated, decision. And a lot of times the double standard that we can create is from our experiences. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times you tend to change your mind or make your decision as you have those life experiences or as you engage more. So,
okay. I mean, I feel like that's the same thing. Ignorance is just the term. It don't mean like we're dumb towards it. It's just kind of one of them things like we just don't know. Like you talked about the roles in of relationships that is not a traditional relationship. I don't know what that looks like. How does that really work? So it's one of those things. I'm just asking the question that as I'm listening to.
I think that we also have to we got to stop being punk ass parents. Like, and I mean that with the most disrespect and the most respect at the same time, right? And what I mean by that is that
disrespect you.
Yeah, and what I mean by that is that, and I'm not saying I'm a poster boy. People gonna be like, yeah, exactly, you all fucked up. But I remember being, I was still living in San Francisco, so I had to be between the ages of like 1 and 6, because I don't even tell people I'm from San Francisco. So it's kind of like me and my dad went to go watch Boys in the Hood. I remember going to watch that with my dad when I was like between the ages of 1 and 6 at the movie theater. That don't mean that I wake up thinking I'm fucking Doughboy though. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I remember the first album that my dad played for me when I was a kid. The first album I can remember being played in the car was between the Ghetto Boys and DJ Quick. Those was like the 2 cassettes he must have bought, because we played all the time when we played rap music. But that don't mean I was walking around trying to do no sexually explicit shit between the ages of 1 and 6. And I would say all of that too was to the point that it's like, you gonna listen to this, but that ain't how you act. You know what I mean? Like, there has to, I'm not saying that we have to expose our kids to that. I will say one of the things that I feel out of that, and what I've learned even with my own kids, like, let a kid be a kid as long as he wants. He gonna get exposure to certain things based on how society works, and we'll deal with those as they come. But I like the fact that he wants to go watch Avenger movies and Paw Patrol and all of that. I let him go and do that as long as he wants. And then sometimes I do feel that I may have grown up too fast, but I also know that just because I was exposed to these things, I didn't embody them. You know what I'm saying? Or at least at that age, I didn't embody them now, but I'm just saying I didn't embody them. And that's my point, is that I think with good parenting, you can dissect through almost any material that gets put in front of you. So stop being punk ass parents and blaming society for what they're putting in front of your kids. Jump in there with them and stop letting the tablet raise them.
Ooh.
Okay. All right. That's heat. Stop letting the tablet raise them. I think though, that the part of Ghetto Boys and Boys in the Hood is there. That was a cultural movement, right? When John Singleton came out with Boys in the Hood, we were celebrating more and more production of black film, black movies, black people being the top actor in films and things like that. We were celebrating the art, the culture. I think nowadays there's a lot more opportunities and a lot more diversity that our kids don't have to watch stuff like that anymore. You know what I'm saying? So, it could be that some of us are being, punk ass parents, and it could be just some of us are smart enough to understand how some of that exposure to things before you're ready to, for a kid whose mind is not developed yet, how that can imprint their mind in a negative way and causes them to act out aggressively on the playground, or causes them to act out sexually towards kids at an inappropriate age. And that's something we need to be mindful of, right? We live in an era where you can't walk up to kids anymore and just give them a hug, because if they don't consent to that hug and it's the opposite sex, it's probably a problem. So, is it that we are being punk ass parents, or is it that we're being mindful of the time and era that we're in, and we have to be mindful of the things that our kids are exposed to a lot more?
I think it's all of that. I think it's all of that, to be honest. It's one of those things. Of course, you keep hitting. I think like our generation, growing up in the 80s and the early 90s, there was a lot of everything that was on TV was like what's going on right now. We only had like the Cosby's, like family shows. We had the Cosby's, right?
Different world, maybe.
Family Man, time goes on, but now it's like a plethora of family shows out now. You know what I'm saying? You got family, Blackish, Grownish, Mixedish, even the Off the Boat, like all these different shows like that are family oriented, where we just had like one black show. Like you can turn to any channel and it's like a family show on each channel. They got all these channels for different races, different people, different whatever. Back then it was more so like we just had Martin and Fresh Prince. You know what I'm saying?
And after school specials.
Yeah, it was like PBC. But now it's like it's every race, every channel, everything. So you don't have to just listen to Boys in the Hood, just see Boys in the Hood all the time, because there's an abundance of content that is not related to just the streets.
Right. And I think that's what you're getting at, Jeff, is that it's just so many outlets and there's so many things to influence. But again, Dewan and Taffet and Jacoby are hitting it right in saying that.
No more. I'm getting fired anyway. Don't matter.
Oh, okay, good. I'm glad you finally admitted to that. But I think what they're saying is, what's out there, and I'm not even thinking about the kids in general. I'm just thinking about, what we are being sometimes asked to watch or sometimes accept, and I think that throws people off too. I'm gonna be a little bit more. I'm gonna push it a little bit further and say, like, sometimes some things that you're just exposed to or informed of, it makes you kind of bring in your biases, and you're like, man, am I watching this too early, or is this something I really want to see on TV regularly? I know Taff and I had conversations with, like, certain scenes pop up and you're like, man, that's messing up how the movie flows, and you turn it off. So, is that me having a double standard? Is that me just not accepting what's going on? There's so many variables in this. And so when we're talking about what's on TV, what's exposed to our kids, I think also I just want to throw out there that, our biases are going to jump in regardless. And it's just how we check them.
Pete, so you brought up a good point, so for me, I'll admit that I used to, I still do fast forward, if there is a gay intimate scene, whether it's men or women, I fast forward it, right? But I also realize I fast forward, heterosexual scenes as well, right? So in my mind, I used to think like, well, I'm doing this because no, I do it anyway, just because some of that stuff sometimes on TV is too much, it's too graphic, and sometimes it don't even go with the show. Mm-hmm. It's like we talk about inclusivity. It's kind of like every show now has to have sex in it as well, like, and it don't have it. It has nothing to do with the script, nothing to do with the show, and that's how how they draw you in. It's like the first episode of whatever series you watch is going to be butt naked people flying around, sex and all that, especially, you watching something, on Netflix or something like that. And then it doesn't happen again, which means they only did that to draw you in. So sometimes it's a double standard, and sometimes it's just you have a preference for, what you want to watch and what you don't want to watch. You know what I'm saying? And I think we have to, as a society, I always tell people I'm an ally. You know what I'm saying? I have a lot of on my website, I have I walk around with my Gap support all t-shirt and all that, that has the gay flag and all that. So it's not in the sense of not supporting, it's just in a sense of we need to be mindful of what's on our TV, and we need to be mindful of the things that we're presenting to our kids, the same as violence, right? Because my kids shouldn't be exposed to violence. I don't think my kids need to be exposed too much to romantic relationships, whether it's hetero or homosexual relationships on TV. That's just me.
That's where the double standard exists for me, though, right? Like you said, you fast forwarding through the sex scenes. I'm not fast forwarding through the heterosexual scenes. However, there is a chance that I might fast forward through the non-heterosexual heterosexual sex scenes, and there's a significant chance that it makes me feel uncomfortable due to the lack of understanding and the unknown for me. So I mean, when we think about that, I go back once again because I thought that was a damn good post that was put up by Brandy with the whole Lil Nas X and Drake thing, was that where there are some double standards that truly do exist there. My issue with Lil Nas X, and like I kind of stated in my post, but I think it's for good topic and debate here too, is that Lil Nas X came out from this whole standpoint of Old Town Road, and it drew in our kids. It was. I feel that was a target and went more towards our kids than it went towards anybody else. Now for him,
Hannah Montana.
Yeah, he came out as his version of black marketing, advertising, Hannah Montana type of angle. Now he turns around the next day, and the next time we see him, and he's Prince / Marilyn Manson / LGBTQ plus, and I feel like, wait a minute, it's not so much that that's what was introduced to the kids, but I feel that when the way you came out and the route that you took, it's like taking my kids to go see a Paw Patrol movie, and the next thing I know, they're in there having sex and doing all of these things.
They're on there twerking. They on stage twerking.
Yeah, that's not what I signed up for, and that's not what you advertised to me. So I feel like that in itself is part of my reason that makes it, the conversation of double standards pop up when it comes to that person. But I do think that, yeah, we all should be mindful of the things that we're exposing our kids to and how we expose them and how they're exposed to those things.
So what we're saying in regards to that, that's not a double standard. That's just more so about your parenting skills, right?
As far as which part?
No, I'm just saying, like, when we're talking about this, the content that our kids are seeing, that's not the double. We're not talking about a double standard. We're just talking about how much privacy we want our kids to have, or how much of them we want them to be childlike. We don't want them to see adult content. That doesn't mean it's a double standard. It's more so like, are we talking about the content that they're seeing?
Yeah, for me, with him, it's
regardless of the sex
content issue.
Gotcha. Right. Regardless of the sex.
To Dewan's point, though, when he was talking about sex scenes and stuff like that, that to me is a double standard. Also, it's my bias kicking in as well, too. The heterosexual scenes is something that is familiar to me, that I'm comfortable with, that I can, look at and imagine myself in place of those things. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all adults here, all of us in relationships. I can see two heterosexual people having sex and place myself in that situation, or my wife in that situation, and connect to that situation. I can't do that when I'm watching same-sex sex scenes, because I've never been involved with the same sex. So I don't know how that arouses or turns people on. It's not me or for my thing.
It's not comfortable. It's uncomfortable.
On anybody or anything like that. It's just not me or my thing. It's just like if I was to go eat something from a different culture and they do something and they use all types of different spices and herbs and stuff like that. It's not going to immediately be something that I'm like, oh, I'm hella hungry. I'm fiending for this. It's not what I'm used to. It's not what arouses my taste buds or anything like that. So it's the same thing for me.
So are we then saying, well, man, let's question this. Are we then questioning, well, is it a double standard? Or is it just that we don't have those lived experiences to really gauge, how to address them?
Are we ever going to have those lived experiences, though? I'm not never going to go out.
Never. That's what I'm saying. Since we're never going to know that, is it a double standard, or is it just a lack of
relationship? I'm not going to do that to understand it better.
Right. But I'm just saying, it's just a lack that we're never going to know. Like, I'm just never going to know. So is it now my bias is just going to create that standard, or is there a double standard? Because that's the conversational piece.
I think we all have biases and double standards and prejudice and all that stuff, right? So for somebody to say they don't have any double standards, they're lying to themselves and they're being disingenuous. I do think, though, that, like Tab said, sometimes it's uncomfortable. Now, for me, I'm probably not the best person, because I fast forward a lot of stuff on TV. I fast forward a scene that's too violent. I fast forward a scene where somebody about to embarrass themselves, like a dude about to get caught up with like 2 or 3 chicks. I fast forward that stuff. You know what I'm saying? I fast forward stuff that make me uncomfortable that's on TV. You know what I'm saying? So for me, again, I used to believe it was a double standard until I started to really understand what it was. And I think we have to go deeper. But I think society will tell you it's a double standard. I don't believe that. I do believe people have their personal preferences and they utilize those in the way that in which they choose to. Now, when we're really talking about double standards, I think it's more so if you are in support of, it's just an example, like your daughter comes to you and she tells you that she, is in love with a young lady and she wants to get married, and you're support of that. But then your son comes to you and tells you that he wants to get married to a man and you're not in support. Now we got double standards. Now that's a problem. But if your daughter comes to you and you tell her, hey, I love you. I mean, I'm going to support you, but I would prefer that you, are in a heterosexual relationship. I don't necessarily think, that's any type of double standard. That's a preference. You know what I'm saying? And from there, it turns into whatever it turns into from there. Again, I don't necessarily think that means you are a homophobe or anything like that. Everybody has a preference. You know what I'm saying? I'm not against you. I just have a preference. I prefer something else. And the same way that people who are gay are not heterophobes, right? They have a preference and they prefer what they prefer. And I think that's the thing about society. We can't let society create the rule books, because society is inconsistent.
But we gotta still
society, or is it those think tanks that come together? You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of times when it's like, it's just a way that people move without individuals making an individual decision. That's, I think, what happens a lot, is a whole bunch of people get together and go, that's it. And there's no people really standing out saying, nah, that's not it. Or it's okay to look at it from this perspective.
But let's bust down even, and I want to go back to that what Jeff said though, because there has to be some double standard there. Like he said, if it was 2 girls, you might want to join. Most guys, I might want to join in. Girls go outside, start kissing girls. It seems to be more.
That's too much work.
What's too much work?
Jumping in on 2 girls, just too much work, bro.
Well, yeah, I mean,
you give them a minute and a half each.
Labor part.
You're giving them a minute and a half each.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, if that, I mean, it's gonna be exciting. You might not last a minute and a half each. Like that. At least some people be like, wait a minute, this is really happening. If that was something that was on your bucket list and you got exposed to that, that's too much for them to be like, it's really boom, it's over with. Some people can handle the pressure. Some people built to play in game 6. I don't know who all built to play in game 6. But what I'm saying is, though, to get back on our point, is that 2 girls kissing, boom. You out, matter of fact, better scenario, you out in the club and 2 girls that came there with guys or straight start kissing each other. Nobody's going to look at them tomorrow and be like, man, they was on some other shit or they was gay last night. 2 dudes do that. They went outside, they were straight. Women and men would have that conversation, right? So even society has created that, hey, within this community of the LGBTQ plus, if you are a woman doing this, we're going to be, we make it, we put it on TV and advertise it so much that we've now created that it's more acceptable if it's women. But if it's 2 guys, even in our shows like Insecure, when homegirl, I think Yvonne Orji was messing with the dude and he was like, yeah, I did it with a dude once, but that was back in the day. Like, it's not as accepted. So there is a double standard that exists between 2 women doing whatever it is they do, kissing, rubbing until they reach gratification, whatever the case may be. It's going to be okay for them more than it's going to be for 2 dudes. Of course. Right, that's a straight double standard that we cannot get around. 2 girls kiss tomorrow, it's going to be good.
That's coming from heterosexual males.
Do you think girls would say it's more acceptable for guys? I don't know. Girls, yeah.
Now, I was about to say, Tab, I know women who know of their husbands being involved with another man,
and they were okay with it,
and they're okay with it. You know what I'm saying? And so it's not the reaction or the response that that I would have thought that they would have had, but they're like, look, as long as he's honest with me, then that means I know what I chose or what I accepted, right? So then that becomes a whole different conversation. You know what I'm saying? You have women who hang around nothing but gay men. So what they think, obviously if all their friends is gay dudes, they watching them bust each other down and all type of stuff, right?
But what's the popular response though? The popular response would be that most women would not be okay.
And that's what I was saying earlier though, is that's the popular, like
I'm saying it don't happen, it's just popular.
Not everything.
Yeah, that's a rarity what you got. You got a minority that are okay with that.
I think the popular response is what society says is okay.
Exactly.
Right. So I think if you ask people on Braspective and they're being honest, then they will probably tell you that, hey, they don't care. You know what I'm saying? I mean, again, we do live in a society that says that you're supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that. So anybody who does that, you're one of them. And now you're an outsider. And we're people. We want to be part of the inside. We want to be insiders. So we don't want to be outsiders. So we're going to say the things that make you feel good. But again, like when we started this, I said it's society hypocrites, because I do think society's hypocrites. Hell, our governor just told women you don't have a right to your body. You can't get an abortion, but then told people you have a right to your body. You don't have to have vaccines. What's up, bruh? Like, can we get some consistency? You know what I'm saying? Hypocrites. You know what I'm saying? So we live in that world where people ebb and flow based on what the people that they surround themselves agree to.
However that pendulum's moving at the time. Oh, that's where we're going.
You know what's wrong with your governor? He plotted on somebody and they told him, I don't care, I don't want it. That's what's wrong with your governor. Your governor probably tried to shoot the club up on somebody and they didn't want it. And he's like, oh, I'll fix this problem.
So he overcompensating.
Oh, absolutely. Come on now. To be telling women what they can and can't do with their bodies these day and ages is just fucking stupid. So your governor shot somebody's club up and they told him, I don't give a fuck if you're the governor. I don't want this.
I don't know, they're crazy with that bill. That's another topic for another day.
Yeah.
But bill there.
Yeah.
Man,
it's crazy, because I was talking to somebody the other day and they were joking, but they said, hey, I found out I'm having, twins. And even if I wanted to get an abortion, I can't here. And I'm thinking like, that's crazy that men, we are males, we're men. We tell women what they can and can't do with their bodies, bro.
That's stupid.
That's a clear double standard there.
That's the craziest thing to me that I never got. Like the people who make these decisions are men. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes they're men who have been in situations where they coerce somebody to have an abortion.
They're not
even like.
What would you say at the top of the thing? Hypocritical, right?
Hypocritical.
That's crazy right there, bro.
They some dickheads. They just some dickheads. Like, it's just no reason on any given day of the week, even in a conversation of double standards, to be telling women what they can and can't do with their body. It's just like y'all said, it's a topic for a different day, but that's damn dumb. We ain't speaking from the point of somebody trying to tell women out there to go have abortions or whatever the case may be. We ain't on the wild shit, but we just saying like that's just stupid in general.
I was thinking, what if a group of women, starting from our vice president and senators who were women, got together and tried to pass a bill that talked about men needing to either be circumcised at a certain age or be vaccinated at a certain age? How would that go? Never would happen. It would never happen.
Our vasectomies. What if you got two baby mamas? If you go over 3 different baby mamas, you got to get a vasectomy.
Never happened. That would never happen.
You're like, yeah, sit your ass down. That was more club up tonight. You said
right.
So that double standard right there alone. I'm just saying, if there was that side where women had that and threw out those kind of bills, yeah.
And it's crazy because if you really think about it, majority of the people don't agree with it. You know what I'm saying? And so they still make these laws, and the people, their constituents, don't support it. You know what I'm saying? So, it's who's really running the politics in this country? Is it the people or is it the corporations? And that's a sign, bro, because you don't tell. Listen, I'm a married man. I don't tell my wife what she can do and what she can't do with her body. That's her goddamn body, right? So I'm definitely not going to tell a stranger. You know what I'm saying? Men feel like they have a right to women's bodies. And that's why we have all these damn sexual assaults and rapes. And that's why we have men telling women that they can't get abortions because they feel like they are the owner of women's bodies, man. And that just ain't cool. You know what I'm saying? Regardless of where you at on the issue, it's really more about women having the freedom to choose for themselves. You know what I'm saying? And that's really what it boils down to. Whether you're on the left side of the fence or the right side of the fence, people should have the choice to choose what the hell they decide to do with their bodies. And that's my position on it. But what y'all want to say before we jump up off this thing?
I'll start it with I think where this all came from or started from is just that understanding that we all have some biases and that we sometimes make decisions on the experiences that we personally have. So it's good that you educate yourself before you actually speak out on something. I'll leave it there.
I second that, man. Like I said, we always use the term ignorant, but it's just stuff we don't know about, things that we don't know. And it's okay. That's why we had these conversations. That's why it's okay to have a conversation with somebody that you don't know, that sits across from the table from you that is different. So that's very important. But like I always say, man, try to be a good human. Tune in, like, subscribe, dislike, comment, whatever, on the Braspective YouTube page, Instagram page, Facebook page, all the above, man. Appreciate y'all.
Yep. And I'll just say pretty much that we as parents, we know society is going to take the ball out of our court, whether it's double standards or not. Let's be mindful when we slap them iPads in these kids' hands and let them go YouTube crazy, because there's a lot of stuff out there that they're getting exposed to that displays what should be displayed, what shouldn't be displayed, and the double standards of all these topics that we're talking about. We just touched on a couple of things, and we don't have the answers to them. But as far as the LGBTQ plus community, We're always sitting here as heterosexual men trying to gain more knowledge about what it is that goes on in our world. We know that being minorities, all of us, sometimes we get discriminated on. So we're not speaking from a point of condemning. We're just speaking on it from the point of which we know, and we're willing to sit down and learn more at any point in time. And thank you. Please keep watching, subscribing, all of that stuff. Like, and share with your friends.
You guys brought up an important thing. I mean, I think it's always a vulnerable position when we have these conversations, right? Because we're not, trying to ostracize ourselves in any type of way, but we're also trying to make sure we can have real communities with, real conversations with different communities. I think one of the best gifts that I've had as a therapist is having a lot of clients who are part of the community, I'm part of the letters, right? And so been able to give me insight and information on their feelings and conversations and things of that nature. And I know, gay people don't engage in monolithic thinking, or queer people, but I do understand that, the more we talk about things, the more we have conversations. I think as people, we will be lying to ourselves again if we don't admit that we have double standards. We have double standards when it comes to various things, and not just when it comes to sexuality. We have double standards when it comes to race. Hell, we have double standards in our community when it comes to the N-word, who can and who can't say it, right?
Yeah.
So I think we have double standards, but we have to admit those double standards so we can have conversations. And just because I may disagree with something that you do doesn't mean I don't support you as a person or love you or things of that nature. But, and that's the thing that we also have to be mindful of, you know what I'm saying? But as far as me and as far as the brothers goes, hey, love who you love, you know what I'm saying? Because the more people you love, the more people that you don't hate and you're angry with, the less buildings getting blown up, schools getting shot up, and things of that nature. So it's not about not supporting. It's more so about having conversations about how we can grow as people and learn from each other. So subscribe, tune in. We'll be back in 2 weeks.
Dewan, do y'all still got a double standard though? When women dye their hair, but when I dye my beard? Y'all see I'm back up out here again, right? I'm still back.
It's too dark, bro. You see that bottom part right here? It's too black. Your hair was never that black.
No, I might have to lighten it up next time. I just want to know if y'all got a double standard to this shit.
You know what you look like? You know a football player that got a chin strap on? This shit look like a black chin strap just on right there.
Look. Hey, dyeing your hair ain't that bad. It's not that bad.
No.
But if you a man, don't be wearing no colored contacts. Now we got a double standard on that. Don't be wearing no colored contacts if you.
I'm gonna keep looking for the right color contacts though and blend that shit. It's gonna be right. I ain't gonna stop. Fuck y'all.
Hey, go dye blonde. You just get blonde.
No. See, you trying to get me to say something crazy right now on camera. I ain't dyeing my hair blonde, bro, for multiple reasons. I'm not gonna disrespect nobody or no community, so I ain't doing it.
I see dudes going red. I see different colors nowadays. I see half colors. You can do that.
I couldn't imagine what it would be like if I came through on a job with the red. They probably like, get your ass going to the. It'd be over with. I sure wouldn't be working that day.
They gonna send you home. Hey, subscribe. We love y'all. We appreciate your support. We'll see you.